States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Smith.
Please pray with me. Father, we thank you for all the many blessings you've given us each and every day. We want to give our thoughts and prayers to all the families who experience the loss of a child. Our hearts go out to them at this time of great sorrow. We ask that you be with our Board of Education as they make decisions affecting our students and staff of the Ponca City Public Schools. Our school board is made up of volunteers who truly want the best for our district. Be with them tonight and always. Also take care of our men and women of the armed forces as they serve to protect and defend this great nation of ours. In your name, amen.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Clark?
Present.
Dr. Kincaid?
Here.
Mr. Newsom?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Mrs. Troop? Present.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to start off with presentations and recognitions. Presentation of the Employee of the Month and Friend of Education Awards. First is for Certified Employee of the Month, Rob Fry. He's Ponca City Senior High Ready by 21 Coordinator and Assistant Athletic Director. Is Rob with us?
He is.
Matching shirts.
Employee of the Month. Rob Fry. This gentleman is comical and polite with a bounce in his step and coffee in his hand. He can make anyone and everyone laugh, no matter what the circumstances. If he is given lemons, he will make lemonade. If given a sack of rotten potatoes, he would find something or some way to use them to benefit someone else. He listens to students and their needs and will do everything in his power to assist. He saved the sanity of our counselors by offering to oversee a class when we were out of options. This fine human being should be labeled the MVP, or most valuable person, at Poe High for the 15-16 school year. He is an angel, and he tries hard to keep those wings from showing, but we have seen his halo. I'm proud.
Congratulations, Rob. Support Employee of the Month, Tamara Ralston, Garfield Elementary Child Nutrition Office Assistant.
It is with great pleasure that we nominate Tamara Ralston for Support Employee of the Month. Tamara began working with the Child Nutrition Program as an elementary server in 2002. After being an outstanding employee at that level, she advanced to Child Nutrition Site Secretary at Garfield. Her child nutrition duties include, among others, with her site, cashing breakfast and lunch, managing student accounts, processing applications for free and reduced lunch benefits, maintaining contact with parents, making bank deposits, and keeping up with many reports. Tamara does all of this in a quiet, calm, nurturing manner. I've never seen her short or cross with a student. She has also been to dispense there a lot of hugs, because I've seen that happen. When a server is sick, Liz Glazier takes her place, and due to a surgery, she spent many days serving breakfast. Last year at Garfield, she observed Tamara helping a young man every morning with his spelling words. He would bring her the word list toward the end of the breakfast serving time as Tamara and the servers were waiting for stragglers. She would quiz him on the words to meet that. It's a perfect example of going above and beyond, which it is. Tamara has the ability to complete many assignments with ease, or at least she makes it look easy. And she has put in many hours as part of the dream team for child nutrition, who is that group of individuals that put in all of those low-income apps at the beginning of school so we can get the child count right. She processes the applications for lunch benefits for the secondary schools as well, because they have too many duties to do this without help. Tamara has helped for many years with the compiling that comes with the child nutrition reporting. Tamara has a thorough understanding of the complex rules governing the National School Lunch Program. She steps up and helps us in the child nutrition office with a smile and offers any type of help whenever we ask. Ponca City Public Schools are very lucky to have someone like Tamara. Congratulations, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamara. Finally, Friend of Education, St. Paul's United Methodist Church Math Masters, Union Elementary, Friend of the District.
I'd like all of you to come up here. This group of wonderful people are led by Mr. Don Jorgensen, but these wonderful ladies and another few people come to, what's his name? Charles Gussie, yes. Come to Union and have been coming to help our third graders in their math fact practice. So the third graders at Union really look forward to their math fact practice in the cafeteria with these wonderful volunteers. These volunteers group the students so that they can work with them and really get to know each and every one of them. And our teachers really made a point to say they really get to have gotten to know the kids, and that has been great. They take the time to develop a relationship and identify what level the students are at in order to meet their needs to master their math facts. The volunteers have card games that they use to motivate students to want to learn in a fun way. This helps students be more open to working with math, which sometimes can be intimidating. Students are eager to master their facts and enjoy the friendly competitions while supporting one another. The students are motivated and learning. It's given our teachers a great opportunity to be a part of their learning in a different way. So the teachers can work one-on-one or with a small group. The teachers even get to have fun and be partners with the students in some of the games or competitions. These volunteers have really put their hearts into helping others, and our students are very blessed to have these volunteers. And I know that Don Jorgensen and other volunteers help all over the district. So thank you very much for your service at Union.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your service. At this point, we have,
We'd like to get your pictures. So if you'll step out here, we want to put your picture on the website and in the newspaper.
okay, thank you. At this time, highlights of the Pohai English Department's trip to Europe, Paige Marsh-Smith.
My name is Paige Marsh, and this is Sarah Clevis. We are teachers at
Paige, why don't you wait till they slide out, and then we'll...
My name is Paige Marsh, and this is Sarah Clevis. We're English teachers at Ponca City High School, and we recently took 18 students and 15 adults to Europe for a trip, and we'd like to thank the board and the community, the faculty and the administrators at Pohai, and all the parents and the students who were involved. We have a quick PowerPoint that we'd like to show you, and then we have some students and a parent here from the trip, and they would like to address you really quickly as well. Thank you for having us tonight.
Okay, so I'm not just awkwardly standing up here and clicking. This is a trip that took about 2 years to plan. We had a lot of people kind of come and go along the way, but as she said, we ended up with about 18 students and 15 parents. So we had a good mix of kids and community members and parents and so on and so forth, which turned out to make the trip really interesting. We went to various places in and around London. This is the Canterbury Cathedral, I believe. Okay. We went to Stonehenge, which was glorious. And we ended our trip in Rome, which ended up being a lot of the kids' favorites, as they're going to tell you here in a minute. We all had a really fabulous time. We really enjoyed the opportunity to get to do this for our students, and you guys are going to hear a little bit from them right about it. I'm sorry.
We were able to tie this with the literature that we teach at Pohai. For seniors, we teach Beowulf and Macbeth, the Canterbury Tales, so you can see the tie for this. For our sophomores, Julius Caesar, Of course, we ended up in Rome for the freshmen. We read Romeo and Juliet. We were able to go to the Globe Theater and see that, to Shakespeare's home in Stratford. And it was really, I think it was really educational, but it really was fun as well. So I have some students here who have come to tell you what they liked and what they learned.
Okay, I'll go first. So, okay. My favorite things were getting to see all the beautiful places there were and getting to learn about them each place we went, and even like driving along places we learned about them. And I just think it's really great that my mom, she's always wanted to go see places like that, and I just think it's amazing that she let me go see all those amazing beautiful places and learn about them. So yeah.
Well, I thought it was an awesome time getting to travel with friends and classmates and my mom and all that, and see all those cool buildings, places, structures, and get to see what ancient life was like around there, and get to see that they're still using that stuff. And I was really fascinated just by the engineering and buildings that they had there, and that everything was like thousands of years old.
Students, introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are before you speak.
Okay.
I'm Reagan Brumley.
So my name is Nick Legereau. I just thought it was really neat to go over there, be one of few students, people my age, to get to go visit places like that. I've always learned a lot about those things in textbooks and things like that, but it's something way different perspective to go see those buildings firsthand and actually learn about them. So I thought that was pretty neat, and just going with friends and family and having a great time. It was a really awesome trip.
My name's Libby Adams. You know, you see places like this in movies and TV, and you don't really know how, it really is. But seeing it in person makes it so much more than you can imagine. And if you get to go, if you ever get the chance to go, definitely. It's definitely worth it. So, yeah.
I'm Preston Allensworth. What I really liked about the Europe trip was that before the trip, I hadn't thought of Europe as being a place that I would really ever go to. But being there, being able to go there, really kind of opened my eyes a bit, and being able to see how the people in other countries and stuff reacted, and just to their environment in general was generally interesting. And being able to see historical stuff as far as Shakespeare and like the Baths of Rome, and Baths of London actually too. That was pretty fun to do.
I'm Suzanne DeVinny, and I was a parent that went, and it was just a really great time. It inspired me as a parent to read a lot of Shakespeare before I left. I kept texting Paige saying, "What's next on the reading list?" And I actually read Macbeth before we went, and I can't wait to read Julius Caesar. I've already got it downloaded on Audible, so I can ride my bike and listen. But it was a really great time from a world perspective, just to be able to see the students learning about things that they never, in America, we don't ever really think about. And they got to see things like that. And it was just, I really commend Ms. Clevis and Ms. Marsh for putting this together, and to the board for approving it, because it was really an eye-opening, life-changing experience for a lot of these kids.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Before they get up and leave, board members, do you have any questions for them?
What was the worst part of the trip?
It being super cold. It's cold.
Trying to break a $10 bill from an Italian guy who doesn't speak English.
That was super funny.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, we appreciate you guys coming and sharing with us, and just so the board, just to kind of give you a heads up, I believe that it's the intention of the English department to come back to the board later this spring and talk about another opportunity to, few years to give another group of students the same opportunity to travel, I believe, to Europe again. Is that right? Okay. All right. Ms. Troop, since you were the board being member on this group, you want anything you want to say?
Well, no, I was just, what the kids said, you know, I'm older, of course, and I didn't think I'd ever get to see the places that I got to see. I thought, you know, there's just not going to be an opportunity for me to do that. And so to be able to do it, it was just wonderful. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Okay. Thank you guys very much for taking time to visit with us tonight.
Next is public comments, but we have no one that had applied to speak to us this evening, so we'll go on past that point. That brings us to the superintendent's report for legislature attendance, budget, and a possible revision of policy.
Well, it is that time of year. The legislature came into session last week, and we obviously had the opportunity to hear or read about Governor Fallon's State of the State address. Obviously, not a lot of surprise in that. We all know that we face some very difficult financial times in this state. It was encouraging to see that the governor was open to trying to do some things to raise revenue. Now, you know, there's a big gap between throwing an idea out and something actually becoming law. But for the first time in a long time, we seem to be willing to have the revenue discussion. Rather than going through a lot of legislation, what I did for you is I've printed off some fact sheets that are at your desk, and this kind of covers the main legislative issues that I think that are at the forefront today. Now, obviously, that changes as we go through session. You'll see one that's titled Using Health Insurance, the Flexible Benefit Allowance to Raise Teacher Pay. There has been a lot of discussion at the legislature about how much money do we actually spend on education. And if you listen to the leadership, while educators talk about how much we've been cut, they want to talk about how much more money they've put in. Most of the new dollars that education has received the last several years have gone into health insurance. The health insurance money that we receive does not go through the funding formula. The funding formula is driven by students. So we're funded based upon the number of students that we have and what categories those students fit into. The health insurance is a teacher benefit. So we get X amount of dollars for health insurance based upon the number of teachers that we have in this district and support employees. So you can't really, the legislature can do what they choose to do. They could choose to put the health insurance money in the funding formula, but it would distort how it goes to school districts. So they want credit. And so they want to put the insurance money through the funding formula because they think that's a better reflection of exactly how much money schools in Oklahoma are getting. The other reason I think that they're looking at doing something like this is that the way the law reads right now says that the state will pay the cost of the single premium of health insurance for all school district employees with the exception of the superintendent. Obviously, like any other business, the cost of health insurance keeps going up. Some of the proposals that are out there would be proposals that would, for example, take Ponca City, look at how much money we spent, how much money we received in health insurance this year, send us those dollars next year, but end the provision that they will pay 100% of the cost of health insurance. So that as the health insurance costs go up, that burden would either fall on the school district or would fall on individual staff members. So there's a couple of things going on here. One is, how do we get out of the health insurance burden on the state of Oklahoma, and then how do we get more recognition for the money we do put into schools? And that's kind of what this fact sheet tells you. You're going to see this a lot. No matter how you slice and dice it, we still are 48th in the nation in what we spend on our schools. So even though health insurance doesn't go through the formula, health insurance does get reported to the United States Department of Education. So when they calculate the statistics about schools and either how much we pay our teachers or how much we spend on kids, we still come out 48th in the nation. The next one has to do with administrative costs in Oklahoma. This is another item that's gotten a lot of attention. There are several bills that have been filed on this. There is, anytime you have a budget problem, which we have a budget problem in this state, and anytime you talk about either increasing revenue for school districts, or you start talking about consolidation, or you start talking about having to reduce your teaching force because of budget problems, the first flag that goes up is administrative cost. And this number is not correct, but there's a report that shows that 58% of all school spending in Oklahoma goes to the classroom. And so the immediate assumption is the other 42% is going to administration, which is not true. Again, whenever we spend money, we have to code that in a certain way. Those codes, the way we code expenditures comes to us through what we call OCAS, the Oklahoma Cost Accounting System. OCAS is driven by federal reporting requirements, so that when all the school districts in the state, we spend our money for the year, we send all that to the state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma then compiles all that into a single report, which goes to the United States Department of Education, which then fuels the Education Center for School Statistics, which is where all the statistical information about school districts come from. So when you see that classroom expenditure, what is not included in that is any money, any spending, salaries, benefits, supplies and equipment for counselors. Supplies, benefit, and equipment for special education assistants, those kinds of things. It doesn't include transportation cost. It doesn't include heating and cooling the classroom that students attend school in. So, all that being said, if you look at the way we define administration in Oklahoma, when you look at all school districts across the state, the amount we spend on administrative cost is about 3.6%. Again, that 3.6%, or the $234 million that we spend on school administration cost, is about 48th in the country. There's one in here about a bill on supporting the Oklahoma standards. You may remember a few years ago, the state adopted Common Core, the state rejected Common Core, the state directed the State Department of Education to develop new standards. The department has done that. They've been presented to the state legislature. We have a March 16th deadline that if these new standards are not adopted, well, on March 16th, the current standards expire. So we have to have new standards in place quickly because, I mean, that drives everything we do. That drives the curriculum that we teach. It drives the assessments that we give. It drives the decisions about state testing and what kind of assessments are going to be purchased. It drives textbook selection. So this is something that's very important the legislature move on very quickly. education savings accounts, and this is the last one. What this piece of legislation will do, if enacted, would give every person who educates their children someplace other than a public school the ability to put $3,000 per child receive a $3,000 tax credit per child. So if it's somebody that attends a private school or if they homeschool, and they can use that tax credit for whatever they want to. They can use it for tuition, they can use it to buy supplies and materials, they can use it to take an educational trip if they want to do that. It is the most recent way to avoid the voucher discussion. Vouchers are extremely unpopular in Oklahoma. When you do surveys on vouchers, well over 90% of the people who are surveyed are opposed to giving tax dollars for private school education. The tax credit is kind of a way around that. The argument is it's a tax credit, it's not a voucher, so it's not really taxpayer money.
Would the public school still get the $7,000-8,000 per student allocation since this is a tax credit?
Well, I mean, the argument is that yes, you would, Robin, but, you know, obviously, when you give a tax credit, you affect state revenue. So unless there's enough revenue growth in order to pay for the tax credit and continue to pay for schools, then you'd have, if we had this in place right now, we'd have about $200 million less in state revenue than we have right now.
Because the public system would not know which kids are homeschooled, so we wouldn't really get the money.
And we don't know which ones are homeschooled now.
Right.
Okay.
Wouldn't gain anything.
No, it does not benefit the public schools at all. It's the whole issue about what is a public education. Since 1820, a public education has been government, state-controlled and directed, tax-supported, non-sectarian schools. And so this piece of legislation would change, not in Oklahoma, it changed Oklahoma law since 1907 at about how we fund schools in Oklahoma, but it really is a change in American tradition. If you go and look at states that have already done this or done something like this, obviously there's lots of issues with reporting and what happens with dollars and where they go and where they're supposed to go. But the main thing is this. When you hear these types of bills, one of the things we're always told is that it's to give parents more choice, and it's to help students in low-performing schools to go to higher-performing schools. But if you look at the program that's most like the Oklahoma program is a tax credit bill that passed in Nevada 2 years ago. And a research study was done on that piece of legislation it was released 2 weeks ago. And what it shows is that those the zip codes that use those tax credits are the zip codes for the wealthiest people in Nevada. It is not doing anything to help low-income students in poverty attend private schools in any significant number. Okay, so as we go out throughout the year, I'll continue to bring these updates to you. If you have any questions, feel free to call and ask me. You know, you would think that in a year where we don't have any money that we'd be focused on fixing the Oklahoma budget, but it is still a legislative year, and so there's lots of bad ideas at the Capitol right now. I would tell you that the tax credit bill has the support of two very, very powerful members of the legislature. Clark Jolly, who is a senator from Edmond, and Jason Nelsman, who is a state representative from Putnam City. So it has legs, and the public school supporters in this state are going to have to really rally hard to stop this from happening. Okay. Any questions? All right. Attendance. We have our February numbers, and our enrollment for February 2016 was 5,140 students, compares to 5,179 this time last year, so we're down 39 kids. In 2014, in February, we had 5,219 students. In 2013, it was 5,213, and in 2012, it was 5,188. So we're, I mean, it's not a tremendous drop. I mean, I think back to the days that my first couple of years here when we were under 5,000. It seems, we're still better than we were. It is disappointing. We had started an upward trend in 2013, and we kind of hoped that that would continue, but we continue to decline. I do think that we're going to start to see that change. We've kind of had a dip the last couple of years in 4-year-olds, and I think that that number is going to turn around this next school year. Well, again, what does that mean? Well, it means if this trend continues that our state aid will be affected because our state aid is based upon the highest of the previous 2 years average daily membership in May. So right now we're funded on our May of 2014 numbers. I think that it's pretty safe to say that next year we're going to be funded on May of 2015 numbers, which again are about right at 40 kids less than what we had in 2014. Again, 10 years ago that wouldn't have been an issue, because even with that small of a drop in enrollment, the increase in state funding that we got would have covered that, and we probably still would have picked up some additional money. The way that funding has been the last 4 or 5 years, and especially the way the funding's been this year, it's going to lead us to lose some additional funding for the 16-17 school year, regardless of what cuts the legislature makes. Which brings us to budget. And I hoped that by today I would know what the revenue shortfall in the 10-17 fund was going to be. We still don't have that information. We do know that January tax collections were $150 million less than the year before. So we know that the revenue failure that was declared in December is deeper today than it was then. As I told you last month, we've experienced since July 1st, we've lost about $850,000 in state funding. Some of that is state aid. Some of it is auto tag collections. There's some reduction in there to professional development and some reduction to alternative education. We still, in that $850,000, we have $100,000 of insurance money. We still haven't been officially notified of that. That's just kind of our guess of what that number is going to be. We think the worst case scenario is that we lose another $300,000 in funding in a combination of 10-17 money and revenue failure, so that our cut this year is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. Again, we'll still finish the year with a good fund balance, but we will, and we are in the process now of looking at things that we can do, not only to save money this year, but also as we look toward next year, as we look toward what kind of cuts we're going to have to make in order to make sure that we can keep the district financially sound, not only for 16-17, but 17-18. I visited with the high school faculty last week. Next week, I start kind of a tour around all the buildings. The message is pretty simple, and that is that we're in a tough financial situation. There will be cuts in staff for next year. We will not have the same size staff for 16-17 as we have for 17-18. How deep those cuts are is going to be dependent on what the legislature does as far as funding us for the 16-17 school year. And obviously that still is a long way away. But it's hard not to be doom and gloom when you say that. But But we've looked at staff, and while nobody wants to reduce the number of teachers we have at any site, we've looked at that, and we believe that that while our class sizes will be larger, we still think that we'll be in the neighborhood of 140. We don't see anything right now that would make us think that we're going to have 160 kids in secondary classes. And you know, 140 is still even if 1017 is not in effect, but if it were in effect, that would be the class size limit. We do not. As we've looked at budget cutting measures, we have not looked at any reduction of any staffing at the elementary level. We just don't think we can do that. Those sizes are large enough already. You know, with the exception of Lincoln, we basically have 2 teachers per grade level at every building, and it's kind of hard to eliminate a grade level, and when you put 40, 50 kids in a classroom, and we're not going to do that. As I've told you in the past, our secondary class sizes have been low, and even though we've made cuts, they've still continued to be low. And what we see as what will probably happen for 16-17 is that we'll have larger class sizes at the secondary schools. The good thing about that is we can do that, and we're not talking about cuts that I would consider to be cuts to the bone. We would still have some additional cuts that we could make 17-18 if the recession continues in Oklahoma and we don't see an improvement in our state economy. So we still have some other cuts to make, and we'll still have enough fund balance to get us through next year. But right now we're looking at everything. We've actually had several discussions about a 4-day week. I don't think we're there next year. I think that could be a viable discussion 17-18. But you find out things every day that you didn't think about. Shelley Arrett, I believe, was having a discussion with Jeff Denton last week, and we hadn't even brought Jeff in to have the conversation yet. And I think what Jeff told Shelley is that going to a 4-day week would cost child nutrition $11,000 a day. Is that right, Jeff? So you may save on one end, but you lose on. So we have to be very careful about how we do these things. But that's kind of where we are. And the other thing to keep in mind is I believe that we had 65 first-year people last year. And how many, Shelley? 66. And so all of our first-year staff members are on temporary contracts. So all those contracts expire at the end of this year. All of our second-year people are on temporary contracts. So we have a significant labor force that allows us to, if we have to make some adjustments in the size of our staff without having to go through a reduction in force or do any of those kinds of things that would require hearings before the Board of Education or anything else. So we've got some flexibility, which is why we do temporary contracts, to give us the flexibility in case we find ourselves in this kind of physical condition. Okay, that's all I've got. Oh, I'm sorry. Revision of board policy. I'm going to let Terry come up and just kind of give you the highlights of this.